Right now on Currents News, fight for sports. Catholic high schools and their student athletes are calling on the city to let them play as their futures hang in the balance. Plus, 1 year into the pandemic and demand on food banks has only grown. Catholic Charities is holding a pop-up for people in need. Anti-abortion Democratic lawmakers have picked a day to speak out in support of the Hyde Amendment. And New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio is now fully vaccinated against COVID-19.
You haven't given me a valid reason that I can't play my sport. The sport that I love, the sport that I need, the sport that I am going to use to go to college.
Strong words to the city from high school athletes unable to play due to COVID-19 restrictions. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. Many of these student athletes' futures hang in the balance as they wait to hear if they can play before the school year ends. Some haven't played since their sophomore year. Emily Drooby spoke to students and faculty at XAVERIAN in Bay Ridge and has more.
The adrenaline rush before a play.
Go.
The joy of winning the big game. Milestone moments in a kid's life. In New York City, those moments are being threatened.
All we've been pushing for is to play football, and that's all we want to do at this point. We're not asking for much, we just want to play football.
But Charles and his teammates at XAVERIAN High School can't. They can only do low-contact practices like this. The city's health department hasn't approved high-risk sports like football, basketball, and cheerleading at Catholic schools, despite consistent requests from school and athletic officials. Starting on February 1st, the state gave local departments of health the right to decide if and when high-risk sports could reopen. DOMINICK VULPIS of the Catholic High School Sports Athletic Association tells us after hearing this, they immediately sent their proposal to the city but received nothing back.
We follow the rules and the regulations. We're ready to go. But to this date, nothing yet.
After over a month of radio silence, both the superintendent of schools for the Archdiocese of New York and the Diocese of Brooklyn got involved, sending a joint letter to the DOH and mayor, but still nothing.
There's not even the decency or the respect to respond. In many ways, it's infuriating. It's a strong word, but it's just disrespectful and infuriating.
While New York City public schools have been flip-flopping between open and closed, the Diocese of Brooklyn schools have been open consistently all year. As XAVERIAN High School's athletic director explains, adding to the frustration, schools in Long Island and Westchester already received permission from their departments of health back in February and have been playing since.
To see other teams in our league allowed to be able to compete is very, very frustrating because we have the same protocols in place that they have.
Hearing that other kids got to play in weekend, it's pretty much unfair.
Some students upset at missing their last chance to play.
It's very unfortunate for me and all the other seniors. This is really our last year.
Others worried about scholarships.
We kind of need these games to get me filmed so I can go to college.
Now school programs like XAVERIAN are begging for a chance.
Give us an opportunity to show you that this is something we can do safely.
The DOH has mid-April highlighted as the estimated start date for high-risk sports. Catholic schools and athletic leaders are pleading with the DOH to approve them sooner, hoping to give kids some semblance of normalcy by the end of the year. In Bay Ridge, Brooklyn, Emily Drooby, Currents News.
Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens is coming full circle while tackling food insecurity during the pandemic.
Thank you so much. You're welcome.
The organization held a pop-up food pantry at Our Lady of Sorrows in Corona, the same place the first one was held in June of last year. More than 600 people braved the rainy weather to get the essentials. Corona's largely undocumented population has suffered exponentially during the pandemic, both physically and now financially. A need Catholic Charities says is still a priority a year into the crisis.
Every week we were out in the community, different areas that were in high demand, great need, Corona especially. And people are just so grateful that we're here, that they know that we care about them and they haven't been forgotten.
Catholic Charities Brooklyn and Queens feeds about 65,000 families every month. They distributed $3.4 million in food assistance last year. Once the center of the pandemic, Queens faces hunger as its newest crisis. 1 in 6 people could go hungry if things don't turn around. In December of last year, the unemployment rate in the borough was about 10.7%, but that number is likely higher as undocumented immigrants working in formal jobs are not counted. New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio rolled up his sleeve and got vaccinated during his daily media briefing Thursday.
I totally believe that this is a safe, effective way to protect ourselves, and we need it because we need the supply and we need the ability to get people done with a single shot. So this is what makes a huge difference for all of us.
The mayor highlighting the Johnson & Johnson vaccine as the city pushes to inoculate all homebound seniors with the single-dose shot. The Johnson & Johnson vaccine does stem from abortion-derived cell lines, and U.S. bishops are encouraging Catholics to seek out alternatives if given the choice, but still get it if there are no other options, releasing a statement saying, if one can choose among equally safe and effective COVID-19 vaccines, the vaccine with the least connection to abortion-derived cell lines should be chosen. Therefore, if one has the ability to choose a vaccine, Pfizer or Moderna's vaccines should be chosen over Johnson & Johnson's. The AstraZeneca vaccine has been declared safe by the European Union drug regulator. A number of countries suspended its use amid fears of rare side effects like blood clots. Most of them said they would start using it again after hearing from the European Medicines Agency. The agency says no link was found between the shot and its side effects, and the benefits far outweigh the risks. The World Health Organization will release its findings on the AstraZeneca vaccine Friday. 21 states are suing the president for revoking the Keystone XL pipeline. Led by the attorneys general of Texas and Montana, they are challenging his January executive order, saying he exceeded his authority. Their complaint says revoking the license is a regulation of interstate and international commerce, arguing Congress set the rules for the actions he can take on the pipeline. President Biden says his order shut down the project because the U.S. should prioritize a clean energy economy. But his order forced companies to lay off 1,000 employees and left hundreds more unemployed. The investigation continues into the recent mass shooting of 6 Asian women at 3 different massage parlors. The tragedy is causing a rise in the fear and outrage Asian Americans are already feeling. Britt Conway reports.
People around the world are talking about what happened here. Shootings at 3 spas in metro Atlanta. 8 people are dead and 6 were Asian women. Police say suspect Robert Aaron Long told them the shootings weren't about race. They were about eliminating sexual temptation. But Georgia officials are investigating whether the shootings can be prosecuted as hate crimes. Either way, it's adding to outrage and anxiety over rising violence against Asian Americans. Advocacy group Stop AAPI Hate reports receiving almost 3,800 complaints from mid-March 2020 through February.
Many of my family members are living in fear.
I think the rhetoric from our previous administration was definitely the catalyst for all of this.
Here's what this administration has to say.
We stand with you and understand how this has frightened and shocked and outraged.
President Joe Biden is instructing officials to hold listening sessions in Atlanta. And on this issue, people have a lot to say.
Atlanta has a 5% Asian American demographic. Cherokee County has 2.1% Asian American. He was trying very hard to find 6 Asian women to murder.
This man had to go out of his way to find that many Asian women, and he targeted places of business where Asian women typically work. To me, that is a hate crime.
Violence is so clear to see, but it is so difficult to name because so often Asian women are held as objects and we are expected to hold our shame silently and without apology.
I'm Britt Conway reporting.
Fears of violence against Asian Americans are being felt in New York City. The NYPD is upping protection measures in Asian communities, but say there are no specific threats. More officers will be sent to neighborhoods like Sunset Park in Brooklyn, Flushing, Queens, and Chinatown in Manhattan. Emily Drooby was there speaking with business owners who are dealing with hate along with the pandemic.
A steady stream of customers come into Kam Hing Bakery, the busyness a relief to Liz Yee, especially when she reflects on what it was like this time last year.
You saw everybody close their gates, and then a couple months after you saw for rent signs, for sale signs.
This bakery has been in her family for 3 generations. They shut down for 8 months during the pandemic, focusing on their other spot, Tony's Fresh Rice Noodle. It's been rough, a year later, and things are finally starting to look up.
We're making enough to cover us right now, so for me, that's a win right now. Chinatown slowly is getting back to where it is, but not completely.
This has become the norm for Chinatown. Pre-pandemic, there were about 312 eateries. That dropped to 29 in April. A quick walk down the sidewalk and it's clear that's getting better, but it's still far from normal. A recent survey done by on-the-ground group Chinatown Partnership showed only about 55% of ground floor stores in the area are back open.
For many of these business owners, there has been a bright spot, people coming to their aid from their neighbors around the corner to across the globe.
The good sign is obviously so many people wanted to help, and so many supporters, so many donors.
However, now another ugly virus has reared its head. Racism. Attacks against people of Asian descent are on the rise.
We've definitely seen a lot more fear, especially within the workers.
Wellington says Asian Americans make up about 14% of New York City and that it's up to the rest of the city to help.
I need the other 86% to speak up, to intervene safely, right? To distract, to de-escalate, to document.
Another way to help the area in their journey to recovery, tourism.
You don't have the kind of foot traffic. And I think a lot of the restaurants are now relying more on takeout and delivery, which is helpful, but it's not enough.
From politicians like New York City Council member Margaret CHEN to business owners like Liz Yee, many saying the best way to help is to show up. In Manhattan's Chinatown, Emily Drooby, Currents News.
There's a lot more news headed your way. As children deal with the pandemic, they're looking to mentors for help. Coming up, we speak with the CEO of a mentoring program run by the Archdiocese of New York. And 2 priests are now full-time members of the Diocese of Brooklyn.
There are now some big changes to the tablet website. You can get personalized access to the Catholic news you value. Sign up for free at thetablet.org.
If you ask someone about their success, whether it's personal or professional, you're likely to hear about an influential mentor.
That's a video from Bigs and Littles, an agency of Catholic Charities of the Archdiocese of New York. It's known for helping families in need by providing mentors, and that need has exploded during the pandemic. VIDHYA Kelly, CEO of Bigs and Littles NYC, joins us now. And VIDHYA, the coronavirus has really upended the lives of children across the city. Many have lost a parent because of the virus. What has that meant for your agency?
So it has been a game changer for us. I think when Corona first happened, we didn't know if we could still persist. And really overnight and throughout the pandemic, we completely adapted and switched our program to virtual mentoring, which has really been a lifeline for our kids who have not only been isolated, but their families are dealing with food insecurity, housing insecurity, so many more challenges than we could ever imagine. And I think at the end of the day, we all know the coronavirus affected all of us, but there are some who have suffered more, and those are the children and families that we've been serving.
Yeah, how do you identify which kids are in need of a mentor? Do they sign up themselves?
They do. So oftentimes, typically, our families reach out to us. So we always have a wait list that's kind of never ending. But due to Corona, listen, there are many folks and families who have sadly lost parents during the COVID virus. In fact, 4,200 children lost a parent to COVID just in New York State, and 57, exactly. And that sounds so staggering, but 57% of those children live right here in New York City, in the Bronx, Brooklyn, and Queens. And for us, with those families, we know they're grieving. So we've been trying to do as much outreach as possible to make sure that those families know that they have somewhere to turn to. We know the psychological effects of losing a parent is something no one can ever imagine. And in terms of impact, it impacts psychological health, it impacts schooling, it impacts really everything. And we know that kind of the #1 predictor of helping children get through trauma is a caring, consistent adult. And that's where we jump in and come in terms of matching kids with amazing volunteers throughout New York City.
So what are some of the things that the mentors do to help the kids?
Yeah. So, you know, at the core, sometimes people think it has to be these amazing things that they do with the kids and life-changing things in terms of academics or whatever it may be. But for us, we say the core is we want people who want to give back to the community and feel that they have something that can help a child really see their potential and just enjoy and build a friendship with someone. And that's what our bigs do. They come out, it's a social, recreational, academic program. They may go out with their little brothers or little sisters in the community one day and go to a basketball court and have a slice of pizza. And the next day they may go to a museum. And the next time they may, the big may help tutor the child in one of their subjects.
So what kind of a challenge has the pandemic brought with as far as doing everything virtually?
You know, it is, because listen, there's no substitution for in-person. We know that. We've all felt isolated, but our bigs have been amazing, and they really too have been able to adapt, and we quickly moved to virtual mentoring. And so our bigs are staying connected with our littles through FaceTime, through Zoom, through calls. And right now, as restrictions are being lifted, they're also able to begin to meet in person as well in the community. So it's been difficult, but we've been able to overcome it, and our kids are thriving and our matches are thriving.
It's great to hear. Sounds like a great program. VIDHYA Kelly, CEO of Bigs and Littles NYC. Thanks for being with us.
Thank you so much. Take care.
And if you'd like to get involved in the Bigs and Littles NYC Mentor Program, head on over to bigslittlesnyc.org. Democrats for Life of America is putting together a nationwide day of action in support of the Hyde Amendment. The measure is an established federal policy banning the use of taxpayer dollars for elective abortions. And in recent years, Democratic leaders have pushed to repeal it. The day of action is taking place on April 10th. Supporters are encouraged to contact their members of Congress and urge them to defend the Hyde Amendment. If you're interested in saving lives, visit democratsforlife.org and click Let's Do It to register. 2 priests are being officially welcomed into the Diocese of Brooklyn. Father Dominick Delaporte and Father Andre Franz St. Preux had their incardination, the first in the diocese since the pandemic. Father Dominick is assigned to Our Lady of Guadalupe, and Father Andre is the chaplain at Jamaica Hospital. Both men are excited to continue their ministry in the Diocese of Immigrants.
To continue the mission of God, especially for the sick people, to take care of them.
I learn more from ministering to different people. Their different cultures, their different attitudes, how they approach God.
Both of them are kind of unique, that they both have separate talents.
Now that they are incardinated, the priests will be part of the Diocese for Life and can retire here. The last incardination in the diocese was Father Jorge Ortiz Garay, the first priest in the U.S. to die from COVID-19. Still to come on Currents News, we speak with Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio about people converting to Catholicism later in life and what the process is like. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Schools in the Diocese of Brooklyn are continuing to celebrate Literacy Month, and I got the chance to join in on the fun.
He donated his stuffed teddy to the drive, smiling, as he knew some little boy or girl would be as happy as he was to have a teddy to love. And the seed grew more.
That's me reading the book, A Little Respect Cultivates Kindness, to first graders at Holy Child Jesus Catholic Academy in Richmond Hill. It's all part of the Great Diocesan Read Aloud, community members sharing their love of reading with students in the hopes they'll love picking up a book too. I also read the book to second graders at St. Rose of Lima Catholic Academy in Rockaway Beach. It was a lot of fun. In a little more than 2 weeks, the Diocese of Brooklyn will welcome hundreds of new Catholics into the church, and for some of them, their initiation will be by the Bishop of Brooklyn, Nicholas DiMarzio. He talks about the process called the Rite of Christian Initiation of Adults, or RCIA, with former Tablet editor Ed Wilkinson for this edition of Into the Deep. Ed.
Thank you. And today we're going to talk to Bishop DiMarzio about some of the new Catholics who are entering the church at this time of the year. Bishop, this is the time of year we welcome Catholics to full communion with the church, new Catholics. But the numbers this year seem to be down. Why is that?
Well, I think it's unfortunately due to COVID. Again, the preparation for baptism takes place in the parishes. Some parishes were able to do things on Zoom or remotely, but some parishes were not. Again, though, remember this started last February, and normally people would start the preparation in September. There's another factor too, that we've lengthened the time of preparation from 1 year to 2. So I think it finally hit us that people are taking more time to be prepared, which is a good thing. I mandated that.
Part of the RCIA is the right of election, which we just celebrated early in Lent. What is the right of election, and what accommodations did we have to make this year because of the pandemic?
Well, the right of election means really the right of choosing. These people are chosen to go forward for the final preparation for baptism at Easter during the scrutinies, which are the other liturgical events that happen on some of the Sundays of Lent. So people are more prepared to receive baptism, and that's what that's about.
Mm-hmm. And now the next steps will be, of course, the baptisms and the first sacraments at the Easter Vigil. Will that go on as scheduled? Last year there was a problem with that; it was postponed a bit. But how about this year?
This year, I think again with social distancing and the less numbers, it will be able to be at normal. They'll be able to have the ceremonies as they normally do.
Mm-hmm. And usually at some time after you celebrate a mass with the neophytes, Mass of the Neophytes. What is the Mass of the Neophytes, and what will you be doing this year? Will you have that as usual?
The neophytes will be newly initiated. That's what that word really means. The newcomers. And we have a Mass 40 days after Easter, more or less 40 days, that again reminds them of what the step they've taken. At our liturgy, we usually have somebody, 2 or 3 people, give witness. And what did this mean to you? How did you feel? What was happening in your life when you were baptized? And that's usually very powerful. So it kind of reinforces and gives them some other post-baptismal catechesis, so that they will know they've got to continue learning about the faith, reading the scriptures, participating in the liturgy.
Okay, Bishop, we welcome all of those new Catholics to the faith community, and thank you for sharing with us today.
You're welcome.
And now we throw it back to the news desk.
Thanks, Ed and Bishop DiMarzio. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us, because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time.